Hey, everybody, you're listening to the Soberful podcast, and I am joined today by Diane Bell. Hi, Diane. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Veronica. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Now, Diane is interesting. As soon as I looked at your stuff, I thought, oh, yeah, we'll get her on. Diane is you're award-winning screenwriter and director. We were put together by another friend of mine who's also written a screenplay, and also on a big personal development journey, and 6 years sober, right?
Correct. Yes. All
Wow.
true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, lots to talk about there. So can we start? We're going to talk about like the film industry and kind of representations and all that kind of stuff. But I'd love to start with like, how you got sober. We're both sort of a similar age, and both you're Scottish, I'm English. Like,
Yeah.
I know what our drinking culture is like.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your drinking.
I grew up totally, with a family who were like, if you don't have a drink in your hand, there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And like, of course, like take a drink, as they would say in Scotland, and it's like, that's the most normal thing. And, alcohol for me was something that I had an incredibly unhealthy relationship with when I was very young, in my late teens and into my 20s, definitely binge drinking and awful. And slowly over my adult life, I gained control over it. That's the way I would think of it, right? It's like, so I could control my drinking because I remember once dipping into an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, probably in my late 20s, thinking maybe I'm an alcoholic, maybe I have a problem with this, and going to that AA meeting. And although they say, look for the similarities, not the differences, I was like, oh, good Lord, I'm not like these people. Right. Because the stories were quite extreme. It was in Edinburgh. And I remember the stories were quite extreme that people were sharing. I was like, okay, I'm not like this. So I'm not an alcoholic. Thank God I can cross that off my list. I'm fine. I'm a normal drinker. I've just got to get this under control. That was it. So cut to by the time I was in my 40s, and I stopped drinking the day after my 46th birthday. And, I had reached a point in my life where I knew that I wanted to make some changes in my life. I was not really happy with where I was in my life in general. And it wasn't just about the drinking, because to be honest, the drinking was not the worst thing going on, It was really like I wasn't happy with my financial situation. I wasn't happy with the choices that I made. I just felt like I was not in a good place in my life. And I had that feeling of I'm 46 years old. I was coming up for 46. And I thought I'm on the downhill slope to 50. That's how I saw it. Right? And I was like, oh my God, I do not like where I'm heading right now. And I thought I've got to make changes. And this was like over the, leading up to my 46th birthday, a lot of these thoughts were coming up. And I had this idea of starting an online business, and I was really like starting to get really serious into my personal development. And I had been in and off all my life. I mean, I was a yoga teacher for many years. I mean, there's many different things. Like I was part of a Buddhist community for a long time. So this was not something that was new, but it was something that was like really going into in a deep way at this point. And something that kept coming to me this summer leading up to that birthday was, Diane, if you really want to change your life, you're going to have to stop drinking. And I just kept hearing this little voice inside me. And to be honest, I was just like, oh, hell no. No. Don't tell me that. Right. Because at this point, I was coming up for my 46th birthday, but I had a baby. I had like a 1-year-old. And as I said, financial situation wasn't great. My husband was going out to work every day, like regular, so it's that sort of thing where I'm the stay-at-home mom, and I've got a 5-year-old as well. And having that glass of Chardonnay in the evening was like the payment for the day. It's like, now I get to relax. And my husband would come in from work and be like, do you want a glass of wine? And I'm like, oh yeah, I love a glass of wine. And, and every day I would have that thing of like, just one though, right? But of course, once you have one, you're like, oh, should I just have two? And that's why I felt like I was always negotiating, always having negotiations, and sort of thinking, I don't want to be drinking every day, but I would end up drinking every day because it was the way of relaxing. It was the way of feeling good after a day, with the kids and not feeling great about my life. It's like glass of Chardonnay, I feel better. And so mostly my drinking was quote unquote in control at this time. But the way that I could keep it in control, as I say, was by just constant negotiation. Like there's nothing relaxed or at ease about this. This is like constantly deciding beforehand how much you can have and like how much is too much, and, like brain space on this. And so I woke up the day after my 46th birthday with a hangover. It'd been 46 is my birthday. Went out to dinner with some friends and stuff, and was like, it's my birthday. I'm not just having one glass of Chardonnay, screw it. I'm having the bottle, and then I'm having some champagne, and then I'm having whatever. And I woke up the next day and I did not feel good. And that was the point at which I said, right, this is it. Right. And I just decided for me at that time, I said, I'm going to stop for 3 months. I remember sitting down with my husband. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop drinking for 3 months. And I said, I know it's a little bit crazy because my birthday's in November. And so 3 months meant Christmas, New Year. And we had actually booked a holiday to Mexico at the beginning of New Year. So holidays at this time usually meant for me, like, let's have a margarita, and that's a big part of the holiday, right? So I went, oh my God, what am I doing saying I'm not going to drink for 3 months when it's Christmas, New Year, and going on holiday? Good Lord. But I just decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for 3 months. Well, by the time I got to New Year's Eve, and my husband, bless him, was like, I'll do the same. He said, I'm with you. I'll do the same. So I was like, great. So we decided it was 3 months. By the time it got to New Year's Eve, we were down in Mexico New Year's Eve. And I can remember we were like out at this beach. It was so beautiful. There was this rainbow hitting the water. It was just gorgeous. And I remember I turned to my husband and I said, I feel so good. I said, I'm not going to drink this whole year. Like, why drink? I mean, what does it add? Like, really, like, I feel so good in myself. I feel so much more present. I feel happier. I feel more like everything. Why would I start drinking again? So I said to him, I think I'm going to do this for the whole year. And that was the beginning of it. He said, you know what, me too, because I feel the same way. He said, I feel great. So we said, okay, let's do this for a year. And we said, never say never. Let's see what happens, So we did that whole year. And of course, halfway through, we said, I'm never drinking again. I'm just like, there's nothing about a drink that could possibly make my life better in the way that not drinking does.
Wow, that's amazing. It is just that kind of switch in your head that, because I always say sobriety is just about perception. And we grew up in a culture that told us that alcohol's the best way to have fun, excitement, belonging, connection, and to reward yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have alcohol, you can't get those things. Correct. And so we just sort of persevere, don't we?
Absolutely. And it's sophisticated and it's elegant and it's, it's all these things. It's luxurious, right? It's just like, I totally had that. And I really felt like if you don't drink, you're really missing out on something. I was completely brainwashed, completely conditioned into that. And the way that I see it now and the way I started to see it then was, as I said, like, I realized I was negotiating with it all the time. And I feel like the way it is in our society, like, if you have a problem with alcohol, you have the problem. It's not alcohol's the problem, right? You have a problem. Like, everyone else can handle this thing except for you, because this thing is desirable. This thing is inherently good. This thing is sophisticated. It is fun. It is like your reward, right? It's all the wonderful things. And what I came to think was, it's like being in an abusive relationship, right? Whereby you're negotiating with this person. Everybody's like, but he's amazing. He's a great guy. He's amazing, right? But the fact is, anytime you let your guard down, he punches your lights out. Yeah. And that's how I really felt about alcohol, right? I'm like, if I let my guard down with alcohol, it punches my lights out. And it's because of me. I'm the problem, right? Alcohol's not the problem. It's me. I'm the problem. And it's like, wait a second. Once I stepped out of it, I was like, I've never been the problem, right? It's alcohol's the problem, and our society, the way that they gaslight you about what alcohol is, that's the problem. It's not the drinker. I mean, alcohol's like, it's this addictive thing. It does nothing for people. There's nothing like, when you look at it, there's like no benefits. And I'm not going there with that whole red wine reverse.
No, it's really conclusive now. Yeah. There's no benefits. There's none, zero. How is it being Scottish and being sober? Because the Scots, I mean, England, Ireland, Scotland, we all have a very strong relationship with alcohol. The Irish probably utmost, but Scotland, it's pretty.
So my husband is Irish, just to give you. So we're just like, yes. I mean, for many, many years, like, if you'd known me before I got sober, like, I would always have a drink in my hand. I would always be the one like pouring the drinks, like totally into the whole thing, right? And love people who love a drink. And, and I would always say, like, it's because I'm Scottish. It's just part of who we are. Right? It's my identity. Like, Scottish people, we just like a drink, and so that was absolutely just part of, that thing of, this is who I am culturally. I use that. I can't even think how many times I said that during my adult life. This is like, well, we're Scottish. This is that we like a drink. So now, it can feel a little weird. It can feel a little bit weird. When I go back to Scotland, definitely some of my friends have found it quite strange. My family definitely still find it very odd and, I think a little bit unsettling.
Hmm.
Um, but, I feel really clear in my choice and
Hmm.
I feel really good about it. And
Hmm.
I have like there's no shady energy for me around like not drinking. Like this is the good choice. This is a good choice for me. It's a good choice for my family. It's a good choice for my kids. It's a good choice for society.
Hmm.
It's, like I just go this, like I win in every way. And I'm happy to be sort of like a trailblazer amongst my community to show that there's a different way of living life, and I see some of
Hmm.
my friends and they are like curious.
Hmm.
They are like, how is
Hmm.
this possible? Like Diane, she used to be like such a lush. She loved a glass of wine, right? And they also know that it's not, I'm not in recovery. I don't consider myself to be in recovery.
Hmm.
I didn't do, I didn't do any programs or anything. I don't identify myself as an alcoholic. I don't
Hmm.
identify myself as someone who's a problem, who had a problem with alcohol. I don't see that,
Hmm.
and that was like a lot of my friends in Scotland. They go, "Dad, I'm really shocked that you're not drinking. I mean, because you didn't drink that much. This really
Hmm.
cracks me up. Because I'm like, I didn't drink that much. I'm like, good Lord, like how they normalize vast quantities of alcohol. But I think comparatively, I didn't drink that much, you
Yeah, because
know?
because everybody thinks an alcohol problem is a homeless person. That's what they're saying. Like
Yeah.
an alcohol problem is a homeless person. You're clearly not. So why would you not drink? Like
Yes, exactly.
yeah,
Normal people
the
drink.
rationalizations and hoops that we jump through to normalize abnormal drinking, right?
Yes.
Because it is abnormal drinking every day.
Yeah. But as I say, I mean, I was brainwashed into that. I thought, either you're a normal drinker, which means you drink and you enjoy drinks every
Yeah,
day, probably,
yeah,
or you're a problem drinker, and a problem drinker is somebody who's homeless. A problem
and
drinker is someone who can't keep their job. A problem drinker
that's
is
it.
these people that
Yeah,
I met at the AA meeting who were all like, they've been in prison and they've like lost everything, and
yeah,
I'm like, I'm not one of them, right?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
so if I'm not that, then I must be a normal drinker. I'm fine. I just have to control it. I just have to be better at controlling it. And that was really most of my adult life. I've got to be good at controlling this thing. As I
yeah.
say, if I wasn't on guard, it would punch me. If I didn't like deliberately and intentionally control it, I would drink too much and pay the price.
And that is such an amount of effort and bandwidth, right? That's the thing. Like and I want to talk about your work in a second. You're a creative person. To be spending effort and bandwidth just trying to control alcohol for what purpose?
For what purpose?
For what end,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whereas you could be spending that effort and bandwidth on all of the amazing things that you want to do in your life.
Exactly. And let's go when you just take it off the table. And that's what I wanted to experiment with at that time, rather than control it, rather than negotiate with it, rather than say, well, I can have it just at the weekends, or I can have this one or that, in these certain occasions. Rather than control, I just thought, right, let me just see what it looks like to just completely take it off the table. So there's no negotiation. There's no like in
Yeah.
these occasions it's okay, but in these it's not. Let me just see. And I was like, oh, this is the way. This is just so much better.
Yeah.
Now I don't have to think about it at all. There's no negotiations. It's just like I don't even think about it. When I walk into a bar to meet people, I'm not like, okay, well, I could have one, but just a small one. And it's like that whole thing. It's just like, no, I'm great. I'll have a sparkling water.
Yeah.
I love it.
So tell me a little bit about your work. I mean, tell me about the film stuff first of all, and
Mhm.
the culture of alcohol a little bit around kind of film and all of that kind of stuff. So
So yeah, I started out. I mean, I didn't start. I started out actually, like I said, as a yoga teacher. I studied philosophy, and I taught yoga for many years, and I was really into meditation and all these kinds of things. And during that time, I had an idea. I was always obsessed with cinema, and I was always like wanting to write. That was always a big sort of driving force for me. And then I had an idea for a movie. I wrote my first screenplay at the age of 30, and I managed to sell it. Like it was absolutely incredible. At the time, I was a yoga teacher in Barcelona, and I ended up in LA, sold the script. People would say impossible. I did it. It all worked out. And from that, I got hired to rewrite a script for John McTiernan, the director of Die Hard. And, so then like things just took off for me. It was, absolutely incredible. I ended up directing my first film, Obsolidia, which played at Sundance, won awards there, directed two more films since then. So, I had a great run, really, like writing films and making films. when it comes to the question about like how alcohol, what does alcohol in the film industry look like? You know, I think that the movies are still like what they were with smoking.
Yeah.
I have this thing that like I'm really interested to see a shift happening, because I feel like right now movies, so often still have that like, pouring that red glass of wine, or
Yes.
pouring
Yeah.
that, or the beer, or it's the whole James Bond shaken not stirred.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing of like the sexiness, the allure, the sort of like the big glass with the,
So
it's like
glamorous. So
big over
glamorous.
cocktails, it's absolutely, and it's, feeding this lie that this is again sophisticated, glamorous, elegant, all of these things, and normalizing it. So there's that aspect of it, which I think is going to change. Like I think it's going to change. I think just like, if you look at movies from the 40s and everyone's got a cigarette hanging out their mouth, and then by the 90s it starts to be only the bad guys smoke. I really do believe that what we're going to see in the coming years is the same thing will happen to alcohol, and alcohol will soon be like the bad guy. We'll know he's the bad guy because he's got, he's drinking something. So I'm excited to see that. Like I'm holding space for that. But also, actually, in the film industry, I spent 1 year going to film festivals. After my first film, Obsolete, I played at Sundance. Like I just went to film festivals all the time. And it's fascinating because you see that thing where like so many film festivals are sponsored by alcohol companies,
Huh.
and so many film festivals, then it's like they're handing out the drinks, it's like everything's the drinks parties. And I mean, so many, whether it's like, and the sophisticated ones, it'll be some winery near them, that's sponsoring them. In Scotland, it was Drambuie always that sponsored like the Edinburgh Film Festival. LA did the Independent Spirit Awards, sponsored by I think Johnny Walker or something like this, right? I mean, there's a lot of alcohol sponsorship for film festivals,
Didn't know
and
that.
yeah, and they, and it's just that thing, and it's kind of fascinating to me because I feel like, I think more and more people in the film industry are choosing a sober lifestyle. I think like more and more people are like shifting that way. And there's just this weird thing though, because for me personally, when I was in that, when I went to all those film festivals, I was under a lot of stress, because I had the situation, which sounds like a dream. Your film is, like playing at Sundance, and what a dream. Of course, like it's like, oh my God, what is happening? My dream has come true, but this is absolutely terrifying. And my way of coping with it was absolutely just like, where's the bar? Get me a drink. And so I can have a drink and calm my nerves and feel okay. And I would honestly say that whole year, I mean, I think of some of the film festivals I went to, and I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I was just like half cut the whole time with the drinks because they're always flowing in those festivals. And I would love to see that shift. I don't know if it is shifting yet, but I would love to see that shift as well. I think it
That
will.
that's really interesting, because I talk about that with my clients, and I talk about it a lot, in that the only representation you see in TV and movies is there's either an alcoholic storyline, right? So, and it's like just very cliched, or everyone else is drinking and they're fine. So you
Yes.
see the hardened detective, or the lawyer, and they come home, and they've got a beautiful
Yeah.
white kitchen, they draw them, but you don't see the fact that you don't see the next day,
No.
them sticking their head down the toilet, or like, so it's either
Yeah.
you're an alcoholic
Yeah.
or you just enjoy alcohol, and there is no
Yeah.
consequences to that whatsoever. So it's interesting what you say, because it is, I love watching old movies, and it is, everyone smokes all the time in old movies. It's kind of interesting how that's gone. But it's also the entertainment industry. I've had two clients this year who are TV producers, and I always say to them, like, I there's a lot of sobriety. Like,
Mhm.
you can go to meetings in LA and you'll recognize half the room.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
sobriety
totally.
is kind of pretty big in
It
the
is.
entertainment
It's
in
really
some
big.
ways.
And that's why I feel like there's a mismatch between like actually how people are in the film community
Mm,
and then what they're depicting, and also like what, like how there's a lag. There's some sort of time lag going on. And I think it will catch
mm,
up. I think there will be a shift because I feel like more and more people are sober. And I mean, to be honest, Los Angeles, anyway, I lived there for 12 years. And I would say, I mean, overall, culturally, it's not a hard drinking town at all. I mean,
no.
those years I was drinking, like I was still drinking during those years, but I would go, it's like, because I would joke about it, I'd be like, oh, like no one in LA likes to drink. right? Because everyone's driving all the time and
Yeah.
everything's really early and everyone's very work focused and health and fitness focused. So generally speaking, it was good for my drinking. I feel like overall it was good living there, because in those years I did still drink alcohol, but it wasn't like living in Spain, for instance,
Mm.
where
Uh,
it's very much part of the culture.
yeah. What is it like? What is the drinking culture like there?
Oh, people, I mean, I'm sitting here at my desk and I look down, I can see vineyards. We're surrounded by vineyards here.
Hmm.
And so drinking is very much part of the culture. People drinking wine, beer, they like a drink. And I have found it like people here definitely are very jarred if you're not having a drink. They're definitely, it's that thing. I feel like much more so than in America. I felt like in the
Really?
United States, people are like much more ease with sort of like the sober living thing. I feel people here are much more sort of like surprised by it, because everybody drinks. Everybody drinks their wine. Absolutely.
That is interesting culturally. I've talked because I've been sober for 24 years, since I was 27, and I've always felt that. Like, I felt like you could go to a dinner party in New York, and if someone offered you wine and you went, like, no thanks, I don't drink, or no thanks, I'm sober, they'd be like, oh, okay, I've got this. But if you did that in England, people would be like, what? You don't
Yeah.
what? You don't
Yeah.
drink? And it's the same in probably Spain and
It's
France,
definitely the same here,
in
because
Europe.
people just like, it's so much part of, culture, drinking
Yeah.
wine with meals, that it's really to them, like it's unfathomable. But then again, I don't eat meat either. And I've always had that in Spain with the meat thing, where people
Right.
cannot fathom that you don't eat meat, right? So I mean, I'm fine. I'm fine to, just be different, and you
Yeah.
just serve them like what, like what?
Hmm.
They can't fathom it. You can just have a little one. It's like, no, I really don't want it.
Yeah, I remember going on holiday. I think I was in Cyprus with my mum,
Mm.
and we were at a restaurant, and the waiter brought over like a shot or something, a lemon, something like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we were like, no, no, thanks. And he's like,
yeah.
no, it's free. And we're like, no, no, no,
I know,
thanks.
I
He's like, no,
know.
no, you're British. It's free. It's on
Mhm.
the house. And we're like, no, 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 thank you. But we don't drink alcohol. And the waiter was like, British ladies, like I can't compute this, that you're
Yeah,
refusing free alcohol.
I know. And sometimes it can feel like just a little bit socially awkward. I'll be honest, when people are trying to be
Yeah,
generous or kind to you, and
yeah,
it's a way of sort of like communicating, camaraderie and
yes,
friendliness, like bringing you drinks, and then to say no, like it can feel difficult at times, right? I'm going to be honest. Like I've
yeah,
definitely, not that it tempts me to drink at all, because I have no interest in drinking, but it's definitely, I've had a few situations here where I have felt a little awkward about it. So now, for instance, when I invite people over to my house, I do let them know in advance, that I don't drink alcohol, because quite often they bring a bottle of wine and they're really excited. Look at this wine that I've brought you. This is like the best wine. You're going to love it. And then it feels so awkward to say, like, oh, I'm really sorry, I don't drink wine. So I've discovered, for me, the best thing is to let them know before they come over to my house, just to let you know, we will have wine here and you're more than welcome to bring some, because I always have wine and beers in the house for people who are visiting. Like I have no problems with it at all. But I just let them know. I've said, like, we will have wine and beer for you if you desire it, and you're welcome to bring some, but just to let you know that I don't drink it, because I don't want them to have that, because that happened a few times here. And then
it's we sort of have to get comfortable with that discomfort, right? Of
yeah,
like
yeah,
not because maybe some people are going to interpret it as refusing hospitality, but
yes,
they'll get over it.
yeah.
They'll get over it.
They'll get over it. And,
Yeah.
and obviously the people, for us, the people who like make space for all the things. To be honest, when I was like a drinker in my real drinking years, I didn't like hanging out with people who didn't drink. I
Oh
did not
yeah.
enjoy
No,
it.
no. God, no.
It's like, oh my God, this person's so boring, right? Like, I don't,
Yeah.
and what you realize, and this is one of the real insights that I've had since I stopped drinking, that so often socializing was not actually about being with that other person. It was about drinking. And,
Yes.
right. And you sort of think, oh yeah, I'm going to, like, we go out for dinner. We have, like, this friend of mine, we have such great times. It was never about actually each other. It was about drinking.
100%. It was never about the event or the
No.
person or the thing. The primary motive, number one, was I get to drink alcohol here.
Yes.
And
And that's when you realize that, when it is somebody that if they're not drinking, you don't want to see them, because you're like, that's going to be boring. It's not about the
yes,
person. Yeah.
that's such a
Yeah.
Good observation. Yeah,
And it is one of the gifts. It's one of the real gifts of not drinking, because actually you're present to people. Like I find now, for instance, like when I go back to Scotland at Christmas time, I enjoy it 1,000 times more than when I was drinking,
yeah.
because I'm present. Like the people that I'm seeing, my parents, my sisters, I mean, they're all drinking, you know, and good for them. I have no desire to like tell anyone else how to live their life or what they should do. Like I'm more than happy for everyone to do what they want to do. And, you know, but I'm present to them. Like I'm actually enjoying being with them. I'm not double parked now. We're actually kind of talking to you, but I'm also kind of looking for the waiter to get another glass of wine, which is how it used to be. How it used to be.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you didn't go to AA or do anything like that. Tell me
No.
what work you have done on yourself and what really benefited you and like.
Yeah. I mean, when I decided to stop drinking, it did feel like a gargantuan task. I was like, oh my God, can I even do this? Like, will
Mm,
I last even a week? Because I'll be honest, I don't think I'd ever not drank, except for when I was pregnant. When I was pregnant, obviously I stopped drinking. With my first son in particular, I think I didn't drink for over a year. But beyond that, like without having like a pregnancy or breastfeeding going on, you know, there was like, I don't think I'd ever like stopped drinking for more than, you know, a few days, right? My whole adult life. It's quite astonishing. So when I made this decision that I'm not going to drink for 3 months, I was like, can I even do this? Like, am I going to cave? Am I going to be like a week later? Will I be able to do this? And I then kind of threw everything at it that I had at that time, in the sense that I went, okay, I'm doing this. Like, I'm going to do it. So when I quit smoking decades before, I used a book that changed my life called Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
mhm.
Changed my life, that book, right? I think I was like 24 years old or something, and I'd been a smoker since my late teens and didn't think I could quit. Tried to do it on my own, and then a few people told me about that book, and I thought, okay, I'm read the book. Changed my life. So I thought, if I can do that, if I can quit smoking, I can quit drinking for 3 months. And I saw that Alan Carr, there was a book, Alan Carr's Easy Way to Control Drinking. Have you ever heard of that book?
I have, yeah. Lots of people in the community have read that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really a cool book, because he does this sleight of hand where halfway through he reveals there is no controlling drinking. You've just got to quit drinking. Like he's done this bait and switch, right? With the title of the book. But I remember I bought that book on the Kindle or something. I was reading that, and that definitely helped, because I was like, that, you know, he worked for me with the smoking, so I'm going to give him a go with the alcohol. And even though it was controlled drinking and I was actually going to stop drinking for 3 months, I thought I'll read that, because I knew it would help me reprogram my thinking about this, and that did help. I also downloaded a evening hypnosis. Like I listened to this hypnosis every night as I was going to sleep, a stop drinking hypnosis. And I listened to that every night. And that was kind of it. Like this was, I think this was my two-prong attack, was the Alan Carr. I think I read maybe one other book. I'm trying to remember. But that was kind of it. And I was just like, right, I'm doing this. And I remember the first few weeks, but I would just tell myself that thing, like the first few weeks is going to feel weird. It's going to feel weird, but you're going to get to a place where it's going to feel normal. Just like with smoking, because that's what you do when you quit smoking and you have that addiction. And there's like, it really only actually takes 2 weeks before you have the nicotine out of your system and you're no longer physically addicted. So I'm like, this is going to feel weird for a little while, but you know, then it's going to feel fine. And that's exactly how it was. And I was very lucky that my husband decided to do it with me. So I did have you know, somebody there doing the same thing, committed. That definitely
Yeah,
helped. But that was it.
that
That was it.
yeah, that helps a lot. I did the same thing with smoking. I didn't read the Alan Carr book, but I was cigarettes are my drug of choice. I loved smoking. And
I did too.
I just got to the point where I just disgusted myself, because it is disgusting.
I
And I
know.
just
Yeah.
was revolted by myself, and I kind of focused on that, like how revolting it was. And I spent a year quitting. Like I quit for a few weeks and go back, and eventually it stuck. And it was before I got sober, which is a year before I got sober, which is kind of crazy, because back then you could smoke everywhere, and alcohol and cigarettes are so entwined. So,
Absolutely.
um, so tell me what you do now. Like you're a mom of two boys, you're living the life in Spain. What are you working on? What do you do?
So I am a coach and mentor now,
Mm-hmm.
mostly for creative women who want to live wildly abundant, free lives. I started out this online journey teaching screenwriting and filmmaking, and I still do that, and I still love it. And so I run different groups for filmmakers and screenwriters. I,
Mm,
help people at all different stages of those careers. And I just love it. I think I'm just like born teacher. I mean, as I
mm,
mentioned, I was a yoga teacher before I
mm,
started
mm,
making films. And I think like part of who I am is that if I do something that I think is really difficult or really incredible, then I just want to teach everyone how to do it too, which is how I got into yoga, because I was the
mm.
most flexible person, but suddenly I could do the splits. So I was like, I got to teach everyone to do this. It will change your life, And so I started teaching screenwriting and filmmaking first in the room, like in live workshops. And it was at the time that I quit drinking that I started my online business and started teaching it online, and just incredible experience. Now, as I went on with that and grew the business, and what blew me away was, even though it had massive creative successes in my life, money had always been a struggle for me. And I was the typical, like, I'm an artist, I'm a spiritual person, I don't care about money kind of mentality, right? Like, I'm actually feeling superior to people who want money or chase money or have money because I don't care about it because I'm an artist. And that was fine. As you can imagine, if you have that attitude about money, you never have any. So then by the time though that I was at 46, I was just like, I am just sick of being broke. And I don't want this. Like, having kids now, I don't want to always be like not feeling secure financially, which had been all my adult life, but it never bothered me up until then. So at that point, starting my online business, doing the money mindset work, like really transforming my beliefs around money, like in a deep way, having to like face all of these funky beliefs that I had about rich people being greedy and shallow and all the stuff, all of it. So I worked on that. And what was incredible was, it's just like every time that you do that intense inner work, things change so damn fast. You can't even believe it. And so I went from like earning zero to earning 20K months, 30K months, in under 2 years. And it was, that was unbelievable. So that's at the point at which I started to teach. And this was with screenwriting and filmmaking as the core courses that I was sharing. That's when I started to shift though to just coach women and creative women. And I'm obsessed with helping people clear their money stories, live abundant lives, drop the money struggle, and really live the life they deserve. So that's like one of my real obsessions now.
There is a strong association, isn't there, of a romanticized starving artist,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
And often alcohol plays a part in that too, right? Like
Mm, mm,
that vision of the artist, right? And we're like these, decadent, bohemian, free spirited, in drinking and don't care about money. And it's like that
mm.
whole sort of thing. And I bought into that 100%. I was definitely, like, as a teenager, I was very alternative. I was never a mainstream person, never did any sort of normal mainstream things. I've never had a normal job in
Same,
my life.
same.
Right. you know, like I was a pure, like, it's that rebel thing, right? And I was into the beat poets and just totally beholden to all those romantic ideals of like, I don't care what, like normal society likes. And that goes into that whole thing though of alcohol and drugs. And we haven't talked about drugs, but that's another part of the story for me, definitely. Like I was young in the 90s. It was like rave culture. A lot of things went on, and I just always had that thing of like, I don't want to be, part of it. And I like being an artist, like, I don't care about money, I care about creativity.
Hmm.
And what happened for me around the age of 46 was, when I started to question those beliefs, I realized that it had never been an either or choice. It was never like, you can be creative or you can be rich, right? Like, you can't have both. It's like, why can't you actually? Why can't you live a free life and make money and be abundantly supported? And so that's like what I feel like my mission is, to help women in particular, and creative women, break through the conditioning that holds them back. And a lot of my work now has become really focused on also the really deep conditioning as women. I mean, there's obviously us as artists, but as women as well, and the conditioning that we have around money and having more and receiving more and all of that. So that's where my work is now.
Brilliant, Diane. It's been I love everything that you've have so many parallels as well. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, and allowing us to get to know you a little bit. Where can people find you?
Best place is on Instagram. I'm on Instagram every day, basically. And I actually have two Instagram accounts. One of these people, I have two. So I have one that's like screenwriting and filmmaking. And if anybody wants to connect over that, it's at Shoot from the Heart One. And Shoot from the Heart is the name of my book about how to make a standout indie film. So at
Mm.
Shoot from the Heart one is my Instagram that's screenwriting and filmmaking. I'm there every day. And the other one is I Am Diane Bell. And that's the more personal one. And that's where you'll find the stuff that's more about the manifestation and the living your abundant life and all of those juicy things. So two Instagram accounts, but that's the best way for sure.
Fantastic. And we'll include those in the show notes. So if you are dying to live a full, abundant life or are dying to write a film script, Diane is your woman.
Well, thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Take care, everyone, and let me know what you think of the episode, and I'll see you next week.